In the state of Texas, you are likely to have encountered them. Your neighbor, your friend, your local store clerk, your teacher, your lawyer, your doctor, the person next to you in line at the grocery store with their family. These are Mexican Americans. They are normal people with the same ambitions and dreams of building a better life for them and their families, and despite their large numbers and growing population, in the state of Texas, they are also a group of people with a long history of being a minority and subjects of racial discrimination. Why is this, though, and how did we get here? A significant turning point in the treatment and history of Mexican Americans began with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848, and again later on with the emergence of a unified Chicano movement in the 1960s and 70s. Present-day Texas was first settled as a Spanish territory in the late 17th century and was later taken over by Mexico after Mexico won its fight for independence from Spain in 1821. Anglo settlers were initially encouraged by the Mexican government to move to the region, but this quickly backfired as the newly settled Texans successfully fought for and declared their independence from Mexico in 1836. Texas was then eventually annexed to be part of the United States of America in 1845. Prompted by the aggression from Mexican forces over a border dispute with Texas, the Mexican-American War started in 1846 and ended with the signing of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848. The U.S., having won the war from a military standpoint, established the southern border with Mexico as it mostly stands today, and successfully gained an enormous amount of land to support their desires of westward expansion. As part of the treaty, though, the U.S. had agreed to allow Mexicans that decided to stay in the now American land full citizenship and to uphold the ownership rights for the land that these Mexican people had rightfully owned before the signing of the treaty. This promise was largely unkept, though, as many Mexican Americans had land ownership rights denied or stolen and were given unequal citizenship rights as compared with their Anglo or white counterparts. Instead of working on and managing land that they owned, Mexican Americans were now working as hired help for the white landowners that had managed to control much of the farmland in the region. This power imbalance added to the overwhelming negative attitudes held by the state towards the Mexican American people as a minority group. These attitudes boiled up to a wave of unified Mexican Americans fighting for social and political equality in the Chicano movement of the 1960s and 70s. Fed up with the poor treatment of their community, the movement called for Chicanos, or people born in the U.S. with Mexican descent, to fight for things like social justice, education reform, and political empowerment. The movement brought back into light the original Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo and the failure of the U.S. to follow through on its promises to Mexican Americans. Carolyn Ortega, a native of North Fort Worth, explains what it was like growing up in the state during the movement and the realities of being a Mexican American, something that her family, who originated from Mexico, were forced into thanks to the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo.
Both of my sets of grandparents were born in Mexico. Okay, my parents were born in Fort Worth. Okay, so my father grew up on the south side of Fort Worth. My mom grew up on the north side of Fort Worth. I went to a predominantly Hispanic school, since I lived in a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood. We had our own schools, they're nearby. In third grade, I was in third grade, and there's the spelling of my name, so like the legal spelling of my name is different than, just slightly different than the name I used, or because my name was always spelled Caroline, but my family never pronounced it that way. They always pronounced it Carolyn. As I remember, my third grade teacher, when she called out my name, she said Caroline, and I said, that's not how my name is pronounced. And she said, well, yes, it is. And I said, no, that's not how my family pronounces my name. And then she said, well, maybe your family needs to learn how to spell.
Discrimination in public schools was not uncommon, but it led to further support of the Chicano movement. One of the most impactful events that took place was in Crystal City when Diana Palacios, a Mexican-American student, was denied a position on her high school cheerleading squad because the school faculty would only allow one Mexican-American girl to join the team. In response, many Mexican-American students participated in walkouts, and eventually Diana was allowed to join the cheer squad. It was a big win for mobilizing the Chicano movement, but even still, fear and discrimination continued to rattle the lives of Mexican Americans.
My mom is fluent in Spanish, okay, but we never spoke Spanish at home. And so my mom told me that the reason she never spoke Spanish to us at home was because when she was in grade school, she and my uncles and aunts used to get punished in elementary school for speaking Spanish. So she told me on several occasions that that's why she didn't speak Spanish to us at home, was because she didn't want her children to experience, what she did. My mom always instilled in our heads about that you always look your best. The reason we're fascists is because, she would use the term Mexican. She said, because we're Mexican, we have to look better, than another person, because you're going to be judged by the way you look. And if you always look nice, people aren't going to judge you.
As the Chicano movement progressed, several Mexican Americans gained roles in political office and challenged their white counterparts with the help of groups like La Raza Unida, a political party formed by Chicano activists to unite Mexican American voters and their political interest. Old systems don't change easily, though, and a power imbalance was still very present in the day-to-day lives of Mexican Americans.
But in the 60s and 70s, in terms of housing, we always had to identify that we were Mexican Americans. I distinctly remember looking for an apartment. There was at least a couple of landlords that said they didn't rent to Mexican Americans. My partner, he joined the military when he was 17, when he was in basic training. So he has an Irish last name. So he has Irish roots. But all of the moms, the grandma, so and so, they've all been Hispanic. And so, he looks like he's part Hispanic, but his name is Irish. And so when he joined the military and when he presented himself, the sergeant or whomever it was that was checking in all of the soldiers, that he walks up and, the sergeant's like, wait a minute, this is you? He's looking at the name, right? He's like, this is you? He's like, yes. He's like, I was expecting a tall, red-headed white person. And he's like, no, this is me. And so then he looks. So the sergeant turns to look at the other, military person that's assisting him. He's like, well, where do we put him? Where do we put him? And so the other, person says, put him upstairs with the rest of the colored ones. His name didn't match his looks. And this was in 1971 that he experienced this. And so he's told me that was his first experience with racism.
From the start, with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, the U.S. failed to create a level playing field for Mexican Americans and allowed discriminatory practices to be implemented.
It's just the U.S. enforcing their power and authority, and again, not recognizing, the Mexican people as people that could have rights. And this was Mexico at one time. I mean, the people that remained here, this was their land. They didn't take anything from anybody. They were already here, and it wasn't their fault, that this treaty happened and that America expanded. It wasn't their fault. I mean, they were already here.
The Chicano movement helped pave the way for much progress for Mexican Americans. Negative attitudes to Mexican Americans in general, though, continues to this very day. Understanding the context of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo and the Chicano movement not only helps us understand how we got here, but also where we are headed.
The majority of us are here, that are here. We were born here. Again, like I said, my parents were born here. And the Mexican people who try to come here, they're not trying to take anything from anyone. All they want to do is work and survive and keep their families living, and that's all they're trying to do, and it's no different than anything that any one of us would do if we were in the same situation, just trying to survive, trying to feed our families, trying to just see that our families are safe and cared for. I mean, I just to me I just don't think that the whole Mexican culture, whether you're Mexican or Mexican American or whatever, I just don't think that we've gained the respect that that's deserved. Sometimes our culture is looked down upon, and I don't know why.
Mexican Americans, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, and the Chicano movement. Where does this story go next? What can we do to help our neighbors, our friends, and our fellow human beings, such as Carolyn? Let's start by listening to each other's stories and really finding out where we all came from.